Good evening, folks, and welcome to Here's the Deal. I'm Shiloh. I'm your host for this evening. Hope everybody's out enjoying the weather. I know it was 78 degrees up here in western North Dakota. It was very nice and nice to feel and nice to be out and just enjoy the sunshine. As you can see, Here's the Deal is on a new day starting next week on Monday at 8 p.m. Central. We're actually going to have our first guest on Monday. He is John, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly, Wepesnik, and he is running for school board of the Williston School Board. And that election is on June 13th. And so he will be our guest next week, and we'll be talking all things Williston School Board with him. So, as for tonight, we have a good guest. I would say he's a friend of the show's. Uh, North Dakota Senator Jeff Magrum, and he's going to be here. We're going to visit a little bit about the 68th North Dakota legislative session. And so, with that being said, I'm going to bring Jeff on. How are you, Jeff? Good evening.
Good, Shiloh. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, are you relieved or are you still wishing you were at the Capitol?
Well, no, I'm glad we're done. I had a lot of work to do at home. I got home and I've been working super hard. I think I overdid it today. It was almost 80 here, I think, and holy moly.
Yeah.
I was we're trying to get our campground ready. We have campers coming in. Two came in tonight.
Oh,
So we have quite a few seasonal campers. So they're going to start showing up this week and trying to fill holes in out at the campground and just getting general maintenance things. So we're
gotcha.
relieved to get done, and I got cows that are bagging up and getting ready to calve. So trying to get
Well,
everything situated for them and get back to my main living and I mean this legislative session was definitely different for me from what I've been in because I was in the Senate. In the Senate, there's
mm-hmm.
not as many people, so my vote gained twice its strength from what it was in the House, and so and the Senate is more inclusive as far as because it's a smaller group of people. So in the House, we always had at least three different factions, and I don't think that's changed. But the Senate, they don't like having the factions, and I was warned about that right away. That not to that they wanted to be more inclusive and it is a lot easier when you have half as many people. And I think that the Senate was very welcoming to me and Bob Paulson and to all the freshmen. There was 13 of us. There was 10 new Republican senators, and then there was me and Bob Paulson who came over from the House, and then there was one Democrat senator. So there was 13 new people out of 47. So it was quite a change, but yet um, socially, I think we were very, very conservative in the Senate, and the House was too. But
Mm-hmm.
fiscally, we spent a lot of money. I shouldn't say we spent it. We're going to spend it. The fiscal year doesn't begin until July 1st, so that's when majority of the money will start flowing. And then the laws that we pass go into effect in August 1st. So it's just the way it's set up. So a lot of the social laws as far as the transgender or banning some of the
Mm-hmm.
that we did get done. Most of that started in the House, and in my District 8 was well represented. I'm in the my team is Sue Ann Olson from Baldwin and Brandon Pritchard from Apple Valley, and they had some very good successful bills as well as I think we had a good session.
Good, good. So let's start with the good stuff. Oh, is how you think. What was your biggest success? What was the biggest success in the session for you?
Well, the tax package turned out that they used my primary residence property tax bill and put it in the tax package. Last second, it was a conference committee. So I presented that bill early on, and I sat on the Senate Tax and Finance Committee. So we had 8 different property tax reduction bills in that committee, and I ended up offering to kill my bill because the bill that the senator from Mott had, it was a mill levy buy down of 30 mills for just the schools. And it aligns with the Constitution, and it would have helped everyone. So I, as well as others, we decided that we would sacrifice our bills and get behind the mill levy buy down for the schools. And that one was, it was a good bill. And so, but anyway, the 30 mills went to 20 after some negotiation, and I thought we dropped too easy and too fast, or too easy, too fast, and too much, because we went down to 20 mills, and then that disturbed a few of us that we dropped early on our negotiation because the House was behind Burgum's bill, which was the income tax flat tax. They wanted to get the flat tax down to about, I don't remember what their exact goal was, but we were talking at 1.9% at one point, and that's 1.9% of your federal tax. Would you'd go to the state, and that the thing is, the Senate realized that most people don't care about the income tax as much as the property tax, because if you're not making money, you don't pay income tax. But whether you're making money or not, you're paying property tax, or you lose your property, or you're gonna have to finance it. But anyway, so that was the number one complaint when we campaigned last year. So that was definitely my focus. But so the House sent over, and backing up a little bit, the day that Burgum presented his bill in the House, which kind of I find odd that the executive branch can come in and testify for his own bill, but whatever. They claim it's freedom of speech. But Sue Ann was
Yeah.
the only opposition. My teammate Sue Ann Olson, and she's
Mhm.
an accountant, and she went in and she tore holes in that plan, because that plan was actually sending a lot of money out of state, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money and they have companies in multiple states. And so what they do, being North Dakota is a low income tax state, they run their income tax through North Dakota, so they get the lower rate. So a lot of them savings were going to go out of state, and then so she blew a bunch of holes in that plan. So then they were backpedaling. Well, they brought that bill over to us in the Senate after they passed it in the House, and then we started talking. Well, hey, we don't want all this money flowing out of state. We're supposed to be helping the people in the state. So we what we did is we put this homestead tax credit on. And what we did is expanded that. So if you were 65 years old, and I think if you made under about 30 or $40,000 and you had very low assets, you could get your property taxes paid through the homestead tax credit. And you have to go to your county auditor and apply for that. But what we did is we expanded it. We got rid of what they call the asset test. So in other words, you can have unlimited assets, and you can make up to, let's see, I got that written down here. Um, yeah, the expanded homestead tax credit, we put, they're estimating that to be a $53.5 million tax relief. Now that's every 2 years. Well, I take that back. This tax credit isn't going to kick in until next year. So, because a lot of people paid their taxes for this year already.
Right.
Well, actually, I take that back too. I'm really messing up here. You pay, you pay, you pay this year's taxes next year. So,
Gotcha.
so they'll pay the taxes this year, next year. So that's when it kicks in. And so what it is it's, so if you make $42,000, you don't pay, you can make up to $42,000 and have unlimited assets, and you can get your property taxes paid for. And if you make 70,000, then it's a reduced rate of about half. So the one example they use, if you own a $400,000 home in Bismarck and you make, was it 40,000 or less, then you would only, instead of paying the 4,000 or over 4,000 that they pay now, it would reduce it down to about 1,700. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful to the older folks to help them keep them in their house. Plus, they can still make some money because a lot of them have some farmland or maybe still own a business that they rent out or something, or some buildings. This way they
Right.
can have a large, the assets don't matter, and they can have a decent income and still. So it really did help them a lot. And then we did um, what we were gonna do was the mill buy down, but the house wouldn't agree to the mill levy buy down that I was talking about. So they ended up going into a conference committee, and then the House came in and they were real adamant about expanding the income tax credit, but the Senate wouldn't agree to it. So, and in the end, after 13 meetings, well, the 13th meeting, they came in with, it said, well, rather than having the mill levy buy down, why don't we have the $500 tax credit? So everybody that has a primary residence will get a $500 tax credit. And so, if you don't get one already, like if you have a farm home exemption, you already get it. But if you're common citizen, and I mean, if you, well, I shouldn't say that, put it that way, if you own a home that you live in, you're a resident of the state of North Dakota, you'll get a $500 tax credit. So that came off of my bill. That isn't all of what my bill was about, but actually mine was a $750 tax credit, and that's what they started with. But then they said, well, and this comes from our majority leaders. They only wanted to commit to about 515 million every 2 years. Let's see, that would be every 2 years. So they had to scale that back to 500. So you get $500 credit if you're 65 or older. You can apply for the homestead tax credit, and then the income tax. What happened was they wanted to have the flat tax. There's right now there's 5 brackets. So when you get over 30 something thousand or 42,000, I can't remember these numbers offhand. I should have wrote them all down.
Hmm.
Might be in here, but when you get to, there were 5 brackets. The more money you make, the higher the tax you pay. But what they did is get rid of the bottom 2 brackets. So you can make up to $70,000 before you'll be paying any income tax in North Dakota. So that helps about 60% of the people. It's not a lot because a lot of the people that are paying that maybe only pay 200 or 300 a year. But and then the top brackets they reduced the tax down to about 1.95, I do believe. So they don't pay near what they were paying either. They were paying about 2.5%, I think.
Gotcha.
So everybody's going to see a little bit of less tax, not as much as many of us would have liked to have seen, but it'll help. And the other thing is, once you start doing that, maybe you can expand on it again next session. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I see that is there any truth to the rumor that they are going to try and get property tax on the ballot again to eliminate it?
There's a group that was talking about that, and they said if we could reduce taxes in a reasonable way, that they probably wouldn't do that, put it on the ballot. But
Hmm.
I don't know if they're satisfied with what we did. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a big mistake myself. Um, for multiple reasons, but I don't know that we're ready for that because I mean it would be we're talking well over $1 billion a year, and yeah, right now North Dakota's flush with money, but I do agree with the simple fact that the only way you can cut state spending is to cut the income. That's the only way. It's absolutely what I
True
see in
enough.
the mission is it's it's a lot of the guys had a hard time saying no. It's just like the free lunch. We killed the bill in the Senate. That was six
Yeah.
million dollars for, and that's for 200%. So let's just say, um, I think $30,000 for a family of four is considered poverty. Those people would have got free lunch anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
all they got to do is fill out the paperwork. And then if you make between 30 and 60, you get the reduced lunch. And I think a
Yeah.
lunch only costs $2.50. So you would get it for about half price if you make more than 30,000 family four. So then they thought, well, they wanted to have the $6 million for to pay for up to what they call 200%. So that's 60,000 that the state would kick in and make up that difference between the federal free
Yeah.
lunch and so anyway, nobody wants to say no to that. I mean, it may, who wants to deny a child a free lunch? But that
Right.
wasn't the point. The point is, once we start this, where does it end? Because pretty soon it's going to be free college and free this and free that. I mean, so, but they ended up getting the free lunch because they put that in the Senate bill. It's Senate Bill 2284. They put it back into the appropriations bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so you either had to vote for the schools to not get their money or you had to vote for the free lunch. Well, the way we were spending money, I figured, what's $6 million for free lunch? Then might as well just let it go. So I ended up voting for the school appropriation bill. And that the nice part about it is the private schools get free lunch too,
Mm-hmm.
because it says in the bill public and private schools. So the private school people can apply for that money. Yeah.
Gotcha. So in your view, what was the worst part of the session? Where do you start, really?
Well, for me, it was my private property bills all got clobbered because the lobbyists
Yeah.
ganged up on me, and it wasn't just the oil, it was the oil, it was the coal, it was the ethanol, it was the utilities. Utilities jumped all over me. It was all. I mean, we filled the Senate chamber with lobbyists like nobody's ever seen. I mean, I had people that have been there for years that told me they've never seen nothing like it. That these lobbyists descended on us. I mean, they were nervous that increase the requirement to use eminent domain instead of having it wide open. We were trying to make it so if they get, let's just say they want to put a pipeline in and they want
Mm-hmm.
from point A to point B. Right now, they don't have a certain percentage of landowners that they have to sign up. They can just submit to the Public Service Commission and say we got 75% of the landowners, and the Public Service Commission can give them a permit if they want to. Where this would have set a minimum of 85%. If they get 85% of the landowners to sign up for a carbon pipeline, then the counties could require more than that. And then I ended up amending that off of it, hoping to save the bill, but they still killed it. So right now there's no threshold to get to that. And the Public Service Commission did want a threshold because they told me it's easier to do their job if you just check the box. Okay, you're at 85%. Okay, you got it. Because now they go by they go. I don't really know what they don't necessarily have a set criteria. So the point is they did want something that would get them off the hook too, because they could check the box and say, well, Emmons County says that they want 90%. You got 85 now. Just go back and try to sign up another 5%, and then we'll come back and we'll give you the permit type of deal. And so those bills, there were several of them. One of them I thought would have for sure went through was the survey bill. Right now, they're in North Dakota. There's quite a number of landowners that are being taken to court for surveying, and it's part of the eminent domain. So under North Dakota law, it's an old law from 1895 that says that your land can be surveyed for a public purpose without
Mm-hmm.
permission of the landowner. Well, the reason I think that was, I didn't find the exact history on it, but in 1895, you can imagine there was a lot of railroads and roads and dams and
Right.
everything else being built. I'm sure they had to get on the land and get it surveyed. Where now things have changed, people expect you to ask. And so that came up where they were trespassing and they kept telling people, we can do that. And then people would chase them off. The, carbon pipeline builders, workers, they would chase them off. And of course, then they turned around and now they're suing them for accident. And we found that law. I thought that law would go through. It went through the Senate like nothing, but then it got to the House, and they killed it in the House. And then there was another component to that one that if you get eminent domain, let's just say they come out and say, well, Shiloh, we want your land. We need to cross it. We're gonna take you to court in eminent domain. Well, then you would get 30% above the market price. So if they were going to go through your land, then normally they would be paying. They pay by the rod, but let's just switch it to acres for ease of understanding. Let's just say they were going to pay you $1,500 an acre to go through your land. Or in the case of the Minot flood project in the Fargo diversion, there they do buy the acreage out. But
Mm-hmm.
they come in and say, well, your land is worth, let's use the guys in Fargo, let's just say their land is worth 5,000 an acre. You would get automatic 30% above that. Because the theory is you didn't ask for the project came to you. If you wanted to sell your land, you could have got market price anytime. So that was what we call the market compensation bill, or the market, some people called it the adder bill, adder 30% on top. So,
Yeah.
but they killed that one in the House too. Those were good bills. And then the other one was, okay, so right now if they want to put a carbon dioxide disposal area under your property, they only need 60% of the landowners to sign up, and then under current law, you have to be part of the project. Let's just say they take 100,000 acres square, and they come in there and they get 60% of the landowners, and the other 40% say, "Well, we don't want them dumping carbon dioxide under our land." Well, you don't have a choice if you're the part of the 40%. They do pay you, and they pay you market price, or what they call last offer first, or best offer. How is it? It's basically whoever gets the best offer, everybody else gets that same offer.
Hmm.
They got a saying for it: best offer last, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's just say you're the last one to hold out and you get X amount of dollars. The people that signed up first get the same as you, even though they maybe signed up for way less money, which is a bummer because the guys that sign up for way less money, they're the ones that got you in the shape to begin with, because they go, "Oh, we'll sign up," so they count in that 60%, and then they come back and get the same price you did when you had to go through eminent domain. Well, excuse me, there is no eminent domain on that. They automatically take your land. It's a total taking, stealing the land. So what that bill did was it put the component in there for eminent domain, so that they actually had to file a court case, and then you could go to a jury trial. And then the jury would figure out what the reward is instead of just taking what they give you. So that one, a lot of people don't understand that one. It affects such very few people compared to a pipeline. But we have eminent domain going on all over the state. There's um, a bridge out in the west part of the state in Billings County. There's I think the Dickinson dump ground. I think somebody talked about. There's the Red River Valley pipeline. There's the Fargo diversion, the Minot diversion.
Yeah.
Those are just the ones I know about. And this carbon pipeline down here. So those are say there's probably a lot more. I think as we go forward, because North Dakota, they're trying to industrialize North Dakota so much. I think you're going to see property rights get attacked more and more. The industry does not like property rights. They want to be able.
Would you
Yep, go ahead.
would you say that that's part of the 30 by 30?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the
People
pressure's on
don't
right
get
now
it.
the pressure's on to become part of a project, whether it's a wind project, carbon dioxide. The state got approved for 2 salt cavern storage sites, so they're gonna develop 2 salt cavern storage areas over in your country, over west there somewhere, and they're gonna store natural gas in those. And that's the same way they call that's amalgamation, they call it. They can just take your land if they want to make it part of that storage area. See, everybody owns what they call the pore spaces. So
Yeah.
if you own the surface, you own that land all the way to the center of the earth. And it's full of crevices, there's cracks and
Yeah.
caverns and all kinds of caves down there. And they,
Yeah.
they, they store, they want to store the carbon dioxide and the gas down there. The gas, they can pull it back out and use it. The carbon dioxide turns to stone eventually, is what they tell me.
Yep. And therefore we'll shut our oil field down eventually.
Well, it could, but they don't store it in the same area as the oil. That's the theory, is if it leaks up and it solidifies, it'll seal out the oil. But
Mm-hmm.
now some of the guys I've been talking to say they can go back down and refrac it again. So I don't know, but yeah, that theory, like you just said, has been out there where maybe the greenies are thinking, oh yeah, we'll pay them to store it down there. Then it'll plug off their oil, turn to stone and plug off their oil, so they can't use
Yeah.
any oil. There might be some kind of a truth to that. I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm. So what else do you think was a big standout in this legislative session?
Well,
Obviously the
reaffirmed the ban on abortion in North Dakota, which is huge. So
yeah.
now it's illegal in North Dakota again, but we suspect that there will be a lawsuit again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but right now it is illegal. We went around that judge that was blocking it, and then we did get a lot of good. There's so many. It's unbelievable. I mean, the projects like the complex at NDSU, they're building $130 million complex out there, or I think that one was about 100 million for ag research. They're building a new women's prison over here by Mandan, Heart River, women's prison for about 130 million. I mean, there's just money flowing everywhere. Human services, with the Medicaid expansion passed again, that helps these little critical care hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So people they don't have any money or insurance, and they end up in the hospital. The feds pay that 90% of that. That was a big debate between the Senate and the House. The House wanted to cut back on that because they feel like the big hospitals are getting rich off of that, and they are. But the problem is, if you cut that, the little hospitals are going to I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Maybe it won't happen, but they always say they're gonna go broke. Down here we got Linton, and just east of me we got Ashley and Wishick, and those little hospitals. They take care of everybody. So that was the fight over that. The Senate wanted more Medicaid expansion, and the House wanted less. They ended up compromising on not as much as it had been, but less. But the House got their way too. Each one got some of what they want. So they're. Oh, let me think here. I mean, there were some good gun bills that passed
Yeah.
with Kerry. I had a 50 caliber bill that I ended up withdrawing it because Game and Fish said that they would put it in the proclamation without making a law, and that will allow the use of 50 caliber weapons for big game hunting and
Yeah.
on private land too. It can't be public.
Right. I remember that. That was Clay's
Yeah, Clay,
Peterson, right?
he was
Yeah.
the one wanted it, and I said, yeah, I support the gun bill anyway. Every good conservative legislator should have one gun bill. You got to keep
Yep.
pushing. If you don't push, they'll push
Yep.
back the other way. So as long as we're pushing, and we did get Ben Koppelman's study passed. I got to
Hmm.
negotiate that one through, and that one is gonna hopefully open it up for campus carry, capital carry, capital. If you're a concealed weapon, class one concealed weapon carry, you'd be able to go anywhere. But that study is hopefully gonna bring some information forward so that next session, these bills that the House killed because they say they need more information. Hopefully, this study will reveal the information that they want. And I think they're looking at is
Hmm.
historical data to see if the concealed carry people have been violent. Like, have you seen, for example, the question could be like, have you seen a concealed carry person that was trained in weapons to go to a campus and misuse it, shoot somebody or something, or going to be more like that. Or did government buildings, have you seen where any of these people that were approved to have a license to carry ever turned it on to people, so that some we just information like that.
Hmm.
That's always a question. Oh, wow, they might come in there with their gun and open up on people. Well, most of your people that are concealed carry, they've been fingerprinted. They're all approved and got a good clean
Yep.
record. It's not like they're carrying to, to cause commit a crime. They're carrying to prevent a crime.
Yeah.
What they're doing.
Yep. Protect yourself. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up because I'm going to take the conversation to a left turn here a little bit because we were having a discussion, with, a big thing is with childcare and, people being able to find childcare. And this is something that obviously I know a little bit about. My wife ran a daycare up here and we just recently shut it down because number one, the lack of employees. And, I get what everybody's saying about, we need to help the employers so they can come up with whatever they need to for their employees. But in my mind, it's not that. That's not the problem. The problem is when you go to interview somebody and you hire them, they have to go and do fingerprints and a background check, just like you do to buy a gun. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get that said person's fingerprints and background check back from the state. We've had them anywhere from a month to, like I said, 6 months, but the average is right in between a month to 3 months. Well, by that time, if that person is looking for a job, they're not going to wait a month to 3 months to get the background check done because they also changed the laws where you can't, it used to be where you can work supervised until your stuff came back. Okay, that law is no more. So that is a huge problem. And so I'm just kind of wondering with that, what can we do? What can we do? What can the state do to hurry that process up? Because here's the thing: when you go to buy a gun, that background check's done within minutes to maybe an hour, depending upon what is the problem with the state that we're waiting 3 to 6, however many months to get these background checks done. And I know the first thing that they say is COVID. Well, you know what? It is still happening with these offices. And it doesn't matter whether you go to Williston, to Minot, to Bismarck. I mean, and those are the only places you can go. Yeah, you can go to the local police station and get your fingerprints done. But as far as getting these background checks done, you have to go to one of these bigger cities to get done. So it was just kind of a debate that we had the other night. Some people not that I was a part of, and obviously we're kind of in that circle here in Ray, and then over in Tioga, they're dealing with things, and even Wilson is. I mean, number one, daycare is hard anyway. It's a hard profession, and it's got to be a special person to want to do that. But the frustration for us, the daycare facilities, is when we get somebody hired, we're not even allowed to. And I understand there's times are different, and it's probably best to wait for those background checks to come back. But what's the deal here? Because it almost feels like when you hear the governor talk, it almost feels like this is kind of part of the plan, because there's a lot of, I mean, just like us, we had 30 kids. We had a 6,000 square foot building rented, shut our business down because we could not get quality employees. And it's happening all over the state. I mean, even in our little town right now, the school is even trying to find um, alternative daycare because we shut down. I mean, the uproar in this community alone when we shut our daycare down, Jeff, was I mean, we had people calling City Hall, wanting the city to buy the building that we were in. Had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do with finances and everything to do with hiring people. And
So, do you think that money, that the 68 million that they approved for childcare, is going to help?
no, not if they don't fix the problem and get these background checks done in a ample amount of time.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was taking that long yet. Nobody talked about that. I know that it had been that way for quite a while, and
Yep.
part of the reason is, and I don't know why it takes so long. But BCI said that there's so many background checks all the time, and that's why I usually vote against those background checks, because they always have expanded background checks every session that I've been there. Matter of fact, they tried to background check the plumbers when I first got
Mm-hmm.
it, but I was able to kill that because they said, well, you're going into people's houses. Well, that's up to the employer. I mean, I, as an employer, am going to check on my guys before I send them into somebody's house. You're not going to go hire somebody that's a
Right.
criminal. Well, I mean, you're going to figure that out yourself. So we didn't need the
Right.
state to say that you have to have a background check. There's got to be some accountability with the business owners. And
Yep.
so now they had that was their excuse last time. They said, "Oh, we got so many of them because we have to continually update, whether it's nursing home people, the Department of
Mm-hmm.
Corrections, the daycare people, and on and on. Everybody just getting background checked. It's just a continual thing. But I guess I
But
don't know what the big catch is right now. You made a good point about if you want to buy a gun versus do daycare. That's a big
I
deal.
mean, it's the same background check.
Well, I
And
assume it is, but I suppose for guns, they're just checking if you're a felon, right? That's really all they need to know.
I didn't quite hear you. What'd you say?
For guns, all they got to do is check if you're a felon, right? If you're not a felon, then you're good.
Yeah,
Or am I wrong?
yeah, I think so. So,
Yeah, so I think probably the background check for daycare is a little bit more detailed than that. I don't know. I would assume it is because they have to. There's probably more questions to be asked if you're
okay,
defending.
let's say that there is, just for argument's sake. You're telling me with this day and age that they can't do a proper background check on somebody and have it back in a week? I mean, I go when you even when you apply for a job, you have to give them consent to run the background check. Same thing. Couple days, boom.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to do some checking on that to see what the big difference is. I guess I'm
And
surprised you brought that up.
yeah,
Being
I'm sorry. I kind of went left corner there, but you brought the background checks up for the guns, and that was a discussion, and it's honestly it's been on my mind for a while. Obviously, with the us shutting our business down and stuff. I mean, you want to talk about losing stuff, losing your livelihood. I mean, that's exactly what happened to us. Is
right.
and we had a good business. I mean, we're in Little Ray, North Dakota, and we had people come from Williston. Here's the kicker: one of the families from Williston lived 2 blocks from where they worked. They drove their kid 36 miles one way to us, turned back and went back to Williston 2 blocks from their house to go to work because they couldn't find proper daycare there, and then come back again after they were done with work. We had them come from Powers Lake, which is 40 miles from us, Tioga, obviously 10 miles down the road, Minot, 100 miles down the road from us. I mean, we had a really good business. And honestly, if we could have found the employees, we could have opened a second facility right here in this little town. And that's what's heart wrenching about it is because, you know, we were doing the right thing. We had a good business and it's frustrating when you hear the governor talk because they're not fixing the points. They're not fixing the problem. Yeah, we can throw more money at it, but are you going to fix the problem of the background checks and get these people through in a timely manner?
Right.
Because in
Yeah,
my mind, that's
that's a good question, Shiloh. I'll have to check it out. I know Brandon, my teammate, had a bill, and I don't think that one made it, but it would have allowed anybody that's already been approved, has everything approved, like their background check and so on. They
mhm,
could adopt without going, because right now they make them go through the whole process again. They get a child that they want to adopt, and they got to go through a whole background check again. So it
right.
seems silly, and I
Yep,
don't remember if that bill passed. I'd have to double check back, but um, that's
we've
what
got
Brandon Pritchard's bill did.
we've got a couple families here too that have adopted, and you're right, they've adopted more than one, and they still have had to go through the whole process again.
Yeah,
Just it's crazy.
yeah.
So at any rate, well, I'm sorry we kind of went off the rails there
That,
a little
that's
bit, but
okay.
I was
Don't
just
mind.
I was wondering kind of what your thought is on that too, and then with the school stuff and the dumpster fire that our school systems are here, I honestly I don't know besides everybody pulling their kids out and doing homeschool. That's what we're doing next year. In fact, my kids even asked for it to happen because they're just tired of it. And my kids are only third graders and a first grader. What does that tell you? If they,
Yeah.
as youngsters that way, know what's going on
Well,
and they don't,
that's why they had the private school voucher that the governor vetoed, and
yeah,
then it didn't get overridden. But that was the reason. The public schools are concerned about having competition, but it might help them actually to have competition, and they'll
Yeah.
work harder to keep their students.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I think for what we're spending on schools, our return is not even close to what we're spending.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
the K through 12 budget was like $2.8 billion, and the private schools just wanted 10 million on, and that wouldn't even come out of there. It would have came out of the general fund. And the public school people went berserk. I mean, I can't even tell you. I know it was in the hundreds of emails, and it was a generic email from the teachers unions to vote against it. I did have some local public school people call me too, but the majority of them were. It was just a form email that was put together and sent out on everybody's behalf by the teachers union.
so can I ask you this? In just sitting in Senate and seeing what you've seen since you've been in the legislature, I mean, how do we even begin to fix our school systems from the low numbers as far as um, productivity and just everything that's going on now. I mean, and nobody can say that it's not happening in North Dakota. I mean, a year and a half ago when I ran for school board here in Ray, they told me that the stuff that we're dealing with right now would never be in Ray, and it's here. What do I mean by that? We got an English teacher who has banned books in her classroom and totes it on Facebook. We've had an eighth grade history teacher show abortion videos, graphic abortion videos, to eighth graders because she didn't like their response on a essay that she had them write on the Constitution and what it stands for.
Mm.
She is no longer part of the school system. They told her she either needs to resign or she's going to be dealing with the legal ramifications. So, and that's right here in this little town of 850 people. But I was
Yeah,
told it was told a
well,
year and a half ago that would never happen.
that's the smart thing, I guess, for their side. The liberal
Yeah.
agenda was quite wise. What they did, they got in the public school system and in the college system. And we had a speaker out last year that used to work in the university system, and he said the universities are lost because they're too heavily infiltrated by the left,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll never get them back. He said we'd have to start all new colleges. Well, I think people are seeing that, and that's why they want to go to private, and that's why they want to, especially homeschool when their children are younger.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, one thing that would change things a lot is if we'd get a different um, superintendent of schools.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's good people out there that would do really good, but we just can't get them to run. And
Yeah.
I think they would straighten things out quite a bit. But just have it'd be a change of the superintendent of schools would be a big help.
I agree with that.
And then you have the teachers union, which is like you say, very left leaning, and they have their agenda. And I don't know what it's like on the inside. I imagine there's quite a bit of peer pressure to toe the line and teach what they want taught. And
See, don't you think that's the reason why I mean, yeah, we're losing teachers, but the problem that I see is that we're losing the wrong ones because the good ones they're either afraid to stand up or they're just over it and they leave. I mean, I know that that's what's happening in a few of the smaller communities here, including this one. They're struggling to keep teachers, and but yet this stuff is allowed to go on and on. I mean, the uproar that happened in this town with that teacher showing those videos. I mean, shortly after that, our principal decided to retire. She'd been here for quite a while, and she's good lady, good lady. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that, yeah, we're losing teachers, but we're losing the wrong ones.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the one area I'm weak in is the education side of it. I've never served on any of the education committees,
Oh,
and
okay.
I never really. That was one of my least desirable committees I wanted to be on. This last session, I was on tax and finance for 3 days a week, and then on energy and natural resources for 2 days a week. So we got all the tax and the banking bills, like the one where the credit unions wanted to have expanded territory. And that bill made it through the Senate, but then that got killed in the House, and that would have gave. Right now, the credit unions are limited in their territory as far out as they can go uh, for their customers, and this bill would have expanded that.
Gotcha.
So anyway, but yeah, it's so I never did get into the school stuff too deep because there's only so much you can do in the legislature. There's so many topics,
Yeah.
and I mean, with almost 1,000 bills, we covered every topic, whether it was school or lunch or insurance. We had the one for the cap on insulin, and
Hmm.
that was a big, quite a. There was a lot of emails on that one, and we did get that through, so it'll cap the price of insulin. But the state has to make up the difference, but it's only going to be for state workers. So they couldn't cover everybody in the state. They just had to limit it to the workers. And the goal was to keep the workforce that we have. But I mean, there might be some dead wood in the state with the state workers, but there's a lot of good ones. I mean,
Yep.
smart, very good people. So they got a 6% raise this year, this coming year, and then a 4% the second year. So they'll end up getting a 10% raise. And I couldn't argue against it because all of our costs. So how do you deny the state workers a pay raise? I just couldn't see not giving them one because if we don't keep up with industry, we'll lose them to industry and private business, which may sound good for private business, but you got to have some smart people working for the state too.
Right. Well, I can see that. I think the argument to that would be, though, is maybe we need to realistically evaluate our priorities and spend less somewhere else and pay more attention to other areas. I think would be the argument to that. But I mean,
Well,
I'm
that's
with you.
exactly right. We hired over 300 more full-time employees.
Yeah.
That's a big mistake there. Rather than
Hmm.
just giving a raise, we added a bunch of employees, which it gets I mean, you can figure about $250,000 per employee. That might be a little high, but
Yeah.
every time you add an employee, you figure $100,000 in pay and insurance alone. And then if they use a state vehicle, and I mean, you can figure between 150 to $250,000 costs per year per employee. So a lot of the budget bills I had to vote against just because of the expansion of government. I don't think we needed them all, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure everybody wants more help, right? They're like, well, we need more
Right.
help. And we
So now,
can't keep up. Yep, go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but in 16, I think the governor ran on just that, on limiting government, and didn't they let a bunch of people go when he first got elected, and then now all of a sudden we need more government and we need more employees.
We had to though. That was our first session when me and Luke and the guys got in. Says
Mm-hmm.
that was the governor's first session as well, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a major shortfall in funds, so we had to lay off a bunch of people, and that's why I don't want to hire all these people back again because in 2 years we could be laying them off just as fast, and
Well, yeah,
people that
that's
have to go find a job, it messes up their life.
right. So, yeah, so the question is what happened from 2016 to now that we need to bring them all back just because we got more money to spend or,
Yep, that's
you
what it
know?
is. More money. Everybody
Oh,
wants,
goodness.
if you're a boss of two people, but you can have three or four, now you're a bigger boss, So all the
Yeah,
department heads like, well, we got 40 people, we need 45, he's a bigger boss with 45 people under his command. So I mean, there might be a little bit of that. Do they really need them? I don't know. I suppose there's days they do and there's days they don't, but I don't see. Then someone made the comment, well, our state is really growing. Yeah, the government part is, but
yeah,
I mean, as far as people, we're not that far above what we used to be. And with technology, we're supposed to be saving uh, employee hours, not adding to it with technology. I mean, look at
right.
snowplows. They got that big, they pull that extra snowplow behind on the highways. They go with the snowplow, and then they got that extra wing. They just for example,
Yep,
I mean, look at your as far as state employees, you would think with the computer systems we have and whatever other efficiency
yep,
gained in, they don't have to drive to every meeting anymore. They can zoom in. I mean, look at the time
yep.
savings people would have compared to what they used to have.
We haven't been happy up here with the road department either, though. I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of bad days and roads just being horrible. I can't tell you how many times that I've driven into work into Williston and there ain't a plow out to be seen. And
Mm.
that's, in between 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it was said, well, they don't leave until 8 o'clock. And it's like, really? You're in the middle of oil country and you're not going to leave until 8 o'clock. Hmm.
I think I haven't talked to the DOT director for a while about it, but there was they were really having a lot of trouble getting truck drivers up there in your country.
Really?
Yeah, they were DOT was looking for help. I know that, and I don't know if they filled all them positions, but they were having a heck of a time because the industry was paying quite.
Taking?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Well,
but getting back to your original question about the successes and failures, I think, like I said, I would think that it was a pretty good session. Even though we spent a lot of money, I'm trying to look at the bright side of these things. The bright
mm-hmm.
side is there's going to be a lot of road work. There's going to be a lot of work for contractors, but that's going to drive the price way up. But there's going to be a lot of state money flowing in the next 2 years. If whether it's contracting or whatever, daycares are going to get money. The schools, everybody's getting money, and I've never been one to vote for the money bills and push them, but I get blamed for the bad. I might as well take the good too.
You darn right,
I
hey.
didn't
You
vote
darn right.
for some of them, but but they passed, and there's going to be a lot of money flowing. We did get some tax reduction. We uh, we did a lot socially. I think we increased our rights as far as protecting our children from, even though the book bill got vetoed and it didn't get
Yep.
overridden,
Yep.
there's still a lot of pressure that was put on them librarians now to clean up their acts. So I think I think overall I'm going to say it was a pretty good session, and
So
it wasn't perfect, and I would like to see them cut money, but they're not going to cut when we have money. That's just the one thing I've just have to accept. Until we limit income, we'll never cut spending. That's the bottom line.
So where do we go as grassroots people in your mind? Being done with this session now and looking forward to the next one. Where do we go as grassroots people to keep up the good fight, per se?
Well, grassroots people have the best opportunity of ever now with the term limits. Now's the
Mm-hmm.
time to, them older establishment people that have been in for many, many years were untouchable. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't touch them. Their name was big. They've been in a long time, and let's face it, a lot of the older generation figures if they've been in there and not they haven't screwed nothing up too bad, well, leave them in there. So they
Yep.
do, and that's why the power of the incumbency is so great right now. But the establishment realizes that their time is limited too. They're going to need to mentor establishment type people back in. So this is the opportunity of a lifetime for grassroots to get motivated, get their candidates ready to run because their opportunities are coming, and
Yep.
I think it's going to make for a way better government than we've had. And I think that the grassroots better stay involved, or the establishment will just keep replacing the new people with their people. So they'll mentor them that way. So we have a good opportunity, and that was one of the bills that was. It bothered me that bill came in to the session that would have changed the term limit because it was just passed in November, and right away it made us look really bad that they brought that
Yep.
bill in. I was happy to be able to be part of killing that thing in the Senate.
Yeah.
I spoke against it, and I don't know how much good I did, but we did kill it. And I was glad because people were really annoyed by that they pass a term limit, whether it's right or wrong, and we come back right away and say, no, we got a better one. After not being for term limits at all, the same people that were not for them at all had a better idea all of a sudden. So I
Yeah.
say leave that alone, let it work, see what happens. It can always be changed back if it's not working out the best, but I'm pretty positive that it's an opportunity for grassroots people. But one thing I've noticed in these districts, so people, there's a lot of good conservative minded people that won't run. They just won't run. So you could say, well, we're gonna so and so in this district, he's not towing the line. We need to get him out. If you don't have somebody to run against him, you know
Yeah.
what can you do?
That,
It's just like saying you don't like the governor we have, but we should get him out. But you have to have an alternative. We don't have one right now. We need a
right.
good grassroots guy that's willing to step up and work hard. And it's going
Yep.
to take a monumental task to win that office back to the grassroots. So not that we've ever had it, but to even more of a conservative, because Burgum, whether you like him or not, I mean, he's a globalist. He is not for the state of North Dakota. He's for the world, one world order. I mean, he's definitely
Yep.
in with the right crowd that's pushing that. So even though
Right.
he's playing the game right now. He's not a common down to earth North Dakotan.
No.
Just not. It's just not. And if that's what is that what we can get elected? Can we get a common down to earth North Dakotan elected? And if we could, who do we have? Because that's the
Yeah.
crown jewel right there. That governorship, they influence well over 100 boards, whether it's plumbing board or pharmacy board or whatever. They make all them
Mm-hmm.
appointments. You look at the governor, this that we have now, he appointed two people, two justices to the North Dakota Supreme Court. He appointed the state tax commissioner, a couple public service commissioners, attorney general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got
Yeah.
all his cabinet members, the director of health and human services, the DEQ director. I mean, on the
Superintendent of schools.
superintendent of schools. She wouldn't be in there, I'm sure of it, if he wouldn't have picked her up out of her mess and kept her going.
Yeah.
And they're on and on. He's just That position is so influential. It's just mind-boggling.
Do you think from the time that you started in the legislature until now that people are more aware of what's going on? And
Well,
what I mean,
the COVID woke everybody up, but this session was different. So last session we had the mask bill and
mm-hmm,
the vaccine passport, and we had people storming the Capitol last session. This session, you couldn't get people to show up. Their emotions were done. I mean, the emotional charge wore off because you can only run so long on emotions. And
mm-hmm,
of course, the weather was bad. So there was many a day people didn't come in because they might get to Bismarck and not be able to get home because the road would blow shut. So that hurt
right,
us bad. And another reason that another thing that hurt us was the legislature wasn't really very big on any Zoom in,
mm-hmm,
committee hearings. They wanted people
yep,
to show up again like used to be. And a lot of
yep,
that was because we had a legislator last session that never came to session in one day. He stayed home and he zoomed in every day. So they came and then they said, well, because of that one legislator last session, you can't even zoom in if you're sick. You just have to miss. And we're like, well, that doesn't make no sense. We got the equipment, we got the technology. They were
you
so
spent the money on it, right?
yeah, but the concern is that people would fake it, like, oh, I don't feel good today, so I'm gonna zoom in.
Yeah.
And that one guy ruined it for all of us. So
Was it
there
a
was people that
Democrat?
were kind of. He's got an R by
Okay.
his name. He's got an R by his name. There's a lot of well, the Democrats are bragging that they got all their agenda passed this session.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of JFK Republicans in our party. You can some people call them rhinos, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call them. They are left leaning. Fiscally, they're very left leaning. Socially, they're pretty good. And so they're Republicans on their social stance, but on their fiscal stance, they would be technically be Democrats probably, and that's why those bills were so easy to pass because we had the money and they lean left anyway when it comes to spending. So it worked out for the
Gotcha.
Democrats. So I heard on the radio today they're taking a lot of credit for the bills that got passed, but there's only four of them in the Senate.
All right.
Yeah,
Hip hip hooray, right?
yeah.
Well,
So
I really appreciate your time tonight, Jeff, and so
yeah.
I guess with that, is
Anytime,
there
Shiloh.
anything is there anything you'd like to add before we go, or
Well, I appreciate your little show here you got going on, and if anybody has any questions that I can answer, they can always email me. I can find out the answers. I don't.
okay?
There's so much in them budget bills. I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew everything that was in them bills. There's so much. That last bill we stayed till. Well,
3
what
a.m.
was it?
Huh?
I think we finished it at 5 minutes to one in the Senate, and then it had to go to the House yet. And they piled a pile of stuff in there. I mean, there was so much, and that one had the audit on the state auditor, which they did. The Senate did get the House to let them take the forensic audit off. It's still an
Mm-hmm.
audit, but it's not a forensic audit. And forensic means use can be used criminally in a court.
Yep.
So it was really offensive to the auditor that they had that in there. But then they did make it just so it's just an audit, a performance audit. But I tried to get that out. I spoke against it on the Senate floor, but it was so late and I didn't do a very good job. And not that it would have mattered anyway. I don't think anybody was because their comments are, well, if the state auditor's not if there's no problem, an audit sure won't hurt him none. It'll just show that he's doing a good job. So, but he's already audited. He's already audited twice every 2 years. One by the National Association of Auditors does a what they call a peer audit, peer review,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ID Bailey audits him for the state to just to double check. So now he's gonna get another audit, so I think my opinion is his enemies are trying to bog him down with bothering with his
Yep.
audits instead of doing his job.
Right. I agree.
But anyway, I better let you go. I know we're gonna go too long, and I could talk
Oh,
about stuff for hours. There's a lot to it, but uh, there's a lot in them bills, and I know I talked to legislative council today. They're compiling a list
yep.
and what each bill does exactly, so we can narrow it down better. Because it's funny when you talk to the people that even do the write the bills up, and they said, he's like, I gotta look this up, and I gotta look that up. They don't even remember, and they're the ones that are doing all the bill writing for us. So it's pretty. There's a lot of stuff to it.
Yep. Well, I appreciate everything that you do for us, Jeff. I know it's a lot of time and heartache on you, and I know it's not always easy. So I've kept you and your family in my prayers, and I do appreciate everything that you do for us as representing us. So I just want to let you know that. So, and I appreciate you being on tonight. I'm gonna put you back in the studio here until I sign off, and then I'd like to talk to you a little bit more just before you go, if
Okay.
that's okay. You got a
Thanks.
second?
Good Lord
You
bless you.
bet. God bless you. So that's Senator Jeff Magrum. Um, Probably one of my favorite people in the legislature I've gotten to know. And so I like every time that he can come on, and it's always a good conversation. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and I'm just going to remind everybody that our new night is Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central. And next Monday, or this coming Monday, I will have Williston School Board candidate John Wepesnick. I know I'm not quite saying his name right. On to talk about his upcoming election race on June 13th for the Williston School Board. Until then, we will see you then. Adios and have a good night.